I help nursing students, LPN and RN, get through nursing school and pass the NCLEX so they can go ahead and become actual licensed nurses.
There's a place for us that we sometimes miss because you doing those notes, like you said, sitting in that bed and your husband saying like, wow, like, did you do this? It's so second nature for you. You probably didn't even think it was anything.
You're building the community.
Right.
And that's what it means when we say build your community. You're just going out there talking about nurse stuff, building a community of nurses who like what you're talking about, and then you can start adding on any products or digital things that you like after that.
Welcome to the Nurse Boss Shift. It's your girl, Dr. Kiana Jones.
I'm Crystal P, the BDSP.
And today we have the lovely Nurse Sam, owner of Nurse Sam. And she's going to come to us today and talk to us about her journey. She's been a nurse for over a decade. She has so many products. I can't even talk about how many you have. We're going to cover some of her most popular ones and then talk about her journey. And then we're going to dive into this whole LPN, LVN, RN controversy that continues to come up. So I'm super excited to talk about that. But Nurse Sam, before we get started, I would love for you to formally introduce yourself. Give us your one-liner, your pitch, whatever it is.
Thank you so much for that one. Hello, I am Nurse Sam, owner and founder of thenursesam.com as well as Camp Nursing School. And that is my platform and my business that I created about 5 years ago, where I help nursing students, LPN and RN, get through nursing school and pass the NCLEX so they can go ahead and become actual licensed nurses. Yeah. And I do so in a fun way that's like pop culture themed and also just very entertaining and fun and visual, just to help with memory retention. And I have created this whole business off of that. And so that's what I did.
And what I love about, I was trying to remember when I discovered you. And I know it was probably about 2019, 2020. It was before the pandemic.
Right, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so I know a lot of people became entrepreneurs during the pandemic, especially nurses, but it was before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I always say it hit different when you've been around before the pandemic.
Say that.
And so I thought it was just so creative how you have these different tools that you offer to nurses to prepare. But I was almost certain, and you can confirm this for me, it came from somewhere. Like you either had an experience where you felt like if you had this, it would have helped you, or like, what was your process to even create something like this?
Well, I've always been like very creatively inclined. And ever since I can remember, I've always been a very visual learner. I've always been that person to add some color, add images to whatever like project. I was the person that if you were in class, they'd be like, oh my gosh, Sam's doing the most. That's me. I'm most definitely doing the most, absolutely at all times. And when it was in 2018, I was actually recovering from a hysterectomy, and my husband was obviously he was looking after me, and I was drawing my notes, because I usually draw my notes like on an iPad just because I'm a visual learner. And I was drawing something on my notes because I felt like with me recovering from that hysterectomy, I couldn't be the nurse that I planned on being or thought I was going to be. I couldn't be bedside. Literally couldn't stand. So I had to pivot. And, while I'm trying to sit there and think about like, how am I going to still stay within nursing, but just in a different way that actually agrees with my body. And I was drawing, I think like 5 A's of Alzheimer's or something like that. I can't remember, but I was just drawing something to kind of, so I don't forget, how they say you lose your skills if you don't use it. Yeah. I didn't want to lose my skills or like critical thinking or any of that information. So I was just drawing on my iPad, and my husband came and he was like, wait, did you just draw that? I was like, yeah. He was like, did you trace that? I was like, no. He was like, you should actually do something with that. Like, you should actually like make notes about it. And I was like, well, back in nursing school, everyone did love my notes, and they did. Like, my school probably still has my notes because it was that good. Yeah, and it wasn't even just the information's the same, but it was just visual and different. And yeah, he said you should definitely like share that with the world. And I kind of put like a teaser out there, and it was like social media inspired templates. So I had like a Facebook inspired one, an Instagram inspired one. And everybody online took that and they loved it.
Yep.
And it was proof of concept, basically.
Yes.
And we ran with it.
Yeah.
We ran with it. I continued to like make notes. And while I was doing that, my husband actually brought up my site and like started my site. And he said, okay, well, now you're set up on this end. Now all you have to do is just create the content.
Yeah.
The fun part.
Yes.
And that's what I did. And so I spent the next, well, up until this point, but I spent the next maybe like few months to a year kind of building my digital product library. And right when the pandemic hit, it super took off just because it was a digital product. So
exactly.
It really took off, probably faster than I could have handled. But I definitely got used to it. And we're here today. We're here now. We've helped over 50,000 nursing students to date actually get their license. And we've been exposed to over 200,000 nursing students like across all platforms.
Yeah.
And every day I get a message from someone saying, thank you so much for your notes. Like this definitely helped me. And I remember being that person in nursing school and didn't have anything for visual learners. And it was just like, oh, just read the book and highlight it and then go cry and do your best. And so just to feel like I made that difference and I became what I wished I thought I had, what I wished I had. It's just such a fulfilling role. I can't even, there's nothing else that I would have done with the nursing that would have brought me as much fulfillment as this. And I just love it so much. And I'm so grateful every day.
Well, can I just say, when I was starting my business, I started following a lot of nurse entrepreneurs, and you were one that I followed right before the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw you take off during the pandemic. And I have sent so many nurses your way to buy your products because I definitely wish that I had that. I'm a visual learner. So I've always been like, dude, this is so, first of all, brilliant. Secondly, just so smart and just your notes and how they help. So I've sent many people your way and you have inspired me as a nurse entrepreneur. So I want to thank you for that and for your contribution to the nurse.
Thank you guys.
No, seriously.
So much.
And you just like hearing you, it's so funny. Hearing you talk about this is how I light up when I talk about med spas and when I talk about nurse entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And I really feel like there's a place for us that we sometimes miss, because you doing those notes, like you said, sitting in that bed and your husband saying like, wow, like, did you do this? It's so second nature for you. You probably didn't even think it was anything. And this is what I try to tell people all the time. Like, your gift, it will make room for you. It's something that you just don't even think about.
Yeah.
Like me speaking, it's something I don't even think about. People are like, oh my God, how do you? I'm like, I just talk. Like, I just talk from my heart. I just talk how I feel. But for someone else, that may be a challenge. And if you can help them, then that's the way to, first of all, have your impact and find your purpose. But then also the money is going to follow you.
Right.
If you do that. And I think people miss that. Exactly. So when you did it and your husband said it and you were obedient, because you could have been like, don't nobody care about this. Like, don't nobody want this. But instead, you, like you said, you did a test and saw what people wanted, and they did, and they put it out there. And now you are years in the game. How has that progression for you as an individual, like as an entrepreneur, been? Like, have you had to work through some things? Because it's one thing to be creative and like to be like in your little lane, like drawing and coloring. There's a whole other thing to run a business.
Woo! Man, you just said a whole word right there, because it is night and day. And it was definitely a learning curve. A lot of people don't believe me until I actually say it, but this was the very first venture down anything business. I didn't go to business school. None of it. When I say I learned via webinars and and Google and YouTube. I learned as I went. And was it difficult? Absolutely, because I've been a nurse. And before nursing, I was a theater major. So it's just very random, the progression. But, when I think about it, it all actually played a part into, where I am now and what I do now. But as far as, my journey as an entrepreneur, it's definitely been a journey. I would definitely say that.
Yes.
But at the same time, I like to use my story as kind of like an example, because I want people to know, like, I know people say it, but like, if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And it's not to like discount myself or discredit myself or sell myself short.
Yes.
But it's just to kind of, just hone in on the fact that you don't have to have everything together. Nothing, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes.
You just have to just have courage and just go out, just take that leap of faith and really believe in yourself. Because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will, and they will be able to sniff that out from a mile away. And it's been a journey, but it's been an amazing journey.
Yeah.
Definitely some lows. But lots of ups. Yeah.
Yes,
But lots
that's
of
the
ups,
thing.
you
That's
know,
the
just like anything, any type of learning curve. It was
What would you describe your personality as? So this is our first time officially meeting in person.
It is.
I actually sent Nurse Sam a DM, and it's so funny because I was like, we're coming to Atlanta. I want to get some nurses, and like I want to really be intentional about our conversation.
Yeah.
So I said, we were having a meeting. I go, Nurse Sam, I'm going to try to reach out to her. I literally went to our DMs. Me and you have been just like, you know, hey girl, like you doing good, whatever, back and forth. And the last message you said was, if you're ever coming to Atlanta. And I was like, well, this is in 2022 when you sent it, but I'll be in Atlanta. Let's get you on the podcast. But anyway, the reason why I was saying that is the whole, I forgot where I was going with
manifestation.
The reach out, the outreach. I forgot where I was going.
Just tell you, I think, how we met, how we're finally meeting in person.
Yes.
We're finally meeting you
And
in
you
person.
reached out on
oh, I know what. And I wanted to ask you, what type of person are you? An introvert, extrovert, or both? What would you describe yourself as?
Man, it's so funny that you asked that question because I was asking myself that question. I was like, am I an introvert or an extrovert? And I think I'm a mix of both. I definitely think I'm more so of an extrovert, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Very social. I like talking and I like helping people.
Okay.
I'm an introvert just because I like being left alone and like being inside my house.
Right. And I ask that because I know that some of our listeners, they'll see you on your social platform and they'll think, well, of course you can do it because you probably are an extrovert or you probably already, like being around people. Like, people will tend to find a reason to make you okay to do it and them not, right?
Mm-hmm.
To get themselves off the hook.
Yep.
And so I was asking if you were an introvert or extrovert because when I met you, I thought it came off like she's probably shy. Like you seem like just a little like, really? Like just a little shy, which I see that a lot of people, especially on social media, are able to thrive in that space because you can be in your own zone. Like you don't have to be all up in everybody's face. And, so the people who are listening, what do you say to those people who are just like, but I don't want to get in front of the camera. Like you have over 100,000 followers just on Instagram alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that takes work to get to that point. But what about those people who are like, I don't know how to get in front of the camera. I don't want to look stupid, all that. What's your advice?
Practice.
Yeah.
The thing with me is, like I said before, I was a musical theater major before I went into nursing. So it's not that I've been used to being in front of an audience, but I'm used to practicing in front of a mirror. I'm used to reciting my lines, and getting into character in the comfort of my own, whatever area I'm in, whether it's the bathroom, or wherever. I would honestly say practice makes perfect. And the more comfortable you are, the better and the easier it'll be. I like to be silly. I feel like that breaks the ice. Yeah. A lot of people, we take ourselves a little too seriously sometimes, especially with how everything is now, especially on social media. Everything is just, you have to be perfect. Yeah. Everything has to be, straight laced, or people just won't do something, or, they won't execute. Yeah. But, just find that having that confidence just to go out and try, like I said, practice really makes, it's easier said than done, but practice definitely makes perfect. I talk to myself in the mirror. I sing to myself in the mirror because I'm Beyonce at 2 a.m. with a brush. But, just doing those things, just getting comfortable, not just in the skin I'm in, but just being comfortable speaking about whatever it is. Yeah. Start talking about something that is like natural to you, something that you definitely know you don't feel nervous or intimidated. Like I started talking about LPN accountability, not accountability, but LPN stuff before I started talking about like actual nursing study guide stuff and actually NCLEX information. And it wasn't because I wasn't confident in it. I just wasn't as confident in that as I was being an LPN. Yeah. I'm an LPN, so I know that, you know? Yes. So it felt like less of a chore and more of a discussion, I
like how you said that because it's basically like you're building the community.
Right.
And that's what it means when we say build your community. You're just going out there talking about nurse stuff, building a community of nurses who like what you're talking about. And then you can start adding on any products or digital things that you like after that. But you just have to start talking about something. And I think people get so wrapped up in their heads that they have to talk about their product. And it's like, no, just talk about things you like in maybe the space that your product, the customers, but you don't have to necessarily talk about that thing. Yeah. So I like how you build
and you include your personal journey too, which I'm also a big fan of that.
Yeah.
too. Especially I feel like in the digital space, because we don't get to physically meet people often, right? Unless you go to an event, being transparent about your journey makes you human. And I think a lot of times people miss the human. Like, we go through things. Right? Like, we legit, like, especially when you were sharing the journey about your hysterectomy and, like, you know, the emotional toll that it took on you. It's so relatable because there are really people out here who are going through that exact same thing.
Right.
And it's not just, and when people say, like, well, I just don't see how my story could, like, tie into my product. It can, because it's you. You are the foundation of your product. You're the brand face. I don't care if you try to separate it. It's never, especially in this day and age, going to truly be separate. People are going to want to see other sides of you.
And it's funny that you say that. When people, I was actually speaking to somebody maybe like last week, and they said the same thing, how they don't see how they can kind of fit into their product. I was like, but it's real life though. It's your product.
Exactly.
Like, really, it's your product. So however it's existing now should be how you portray it, because that's what it is. You don't have to try to make it into something that's picture perfect and a Lifetime or Tubi movie. Who knows? Yeah. You don't have to do this. Be honest. Just be straight up about where you are and what you're doing, and you'll be so surprised how many people are in that exact same phase you're in. Like, it doesn't, and like you said, and just like you said, it's about building that community and just being relatable. You may not be relatable to everyone. I wasn't relatable to everyone when I said, I was talking about my hysterectomy. I hope I wasn't relatable to everybody. Right. But those people that I, really resonated with my story and related to it, they really related, and they really appreciated that vulnerability and putting myself out there, especially how social media is now. Whoever has the funniest, rudest comment wins.
Yes, right.
So, I was just like, man, I know they can come up with some good ones for my stuff. So
that's true though. But even the people who may not have been through it, like me, for example, I still found that it touched me because I was like, I know there are so many people struggling with this. And so it gave them a voice, right? And an opportunity to feel like, to understand that this is the journey of a lot of people that you may not even
right. Whether someone had a hysterectomy or they have infertility, painful periods. Right. Or know someone, so hopefully, but someone is, I forgot what the statistic is, 1 in every, I think like 2 or 3 females going to be medically gaslit, especially when it comes to their pain, especially one Black woman specifically. And that number in itself is just so crazy and scary to me. But that's what, unfortunately, a lot of people can relate to. And that's where a lot of people related to that story, even before we went into the hysterectomy part, just the painful period part, and just feel like no one listens or, takes you seriously. That really opened my eyes into how much and how many females actually deal with not infertility, but deal with that issue. And it broke my heart, but it also like warmed it because it's the start of a new community.
Yeah. I love that. Okay. Really quickly, I want to dive into some of the products that you have, because I know you just came out with one and I was like, what? Yeah. That's the gummies. Is that the newest?
That one's not the newest. That was we just sell out of those a lot.
Sell out.
So we've actually had the gummies. That was back in 2022 when we first did the first round of gummies. But it's just getting more and more like popular as time goes on. But
so what's in it? It's not nothing illegal, not for
you'll be surprised how many people ask me that and be so serious. They're like, are these gummies?
Some microdosing going on.
Right, exactly. This plant medicine. When you say vegan, right. People will definitely ask me that question. But no, it's definitely all legal. There's no stimulants in it. And as someone with ADHD myself, I needed something that was more of a supplement for like long term and not just a Band-Aid fix or, just a short-term thing. I wanted something to actually, especially help with my cognitive function, because a lot of people don't know this, but when you have a hysterectomy, your cognitive ability decreases a lot. Yeah, because not even if it's total versus partial, because I still have my ovaries, but the your uterus is actually where it's like linked to your brain as far as like your cognitive ability. So you'll have people with hysterectomies actually have a higher chance of developing dementia, Alzheimer's, short-term memory loss, and that mixed with the ADHD. Oh, I was forgetting everything. everything. So I created it once again because I wish I had something for me, and everyone was just like, I want to try it too. I was like, okay.
Shout out to being able to create. It's like most of the women we interview started because it was something that they needed, and they became, for me too, I became the mentor, the coach that I needed. I didn't have that person.
Right.
I wish I would have, and I know I would have been able to move a lot faster if I did. So I became that. So, but you're creating the products to replace it. It's not just about mentoring or coaching, but you're actually creating the products that people need.
Exactly.
That's dope. That's dope. Okay.
Love it.
So I want to dive into this topic. Now, let me just say this. I did not realize, let me just give a little prelude. I didn't realize that this was like such a thing until I posted, and I got almost railroaded by the LPN, LVN mob. And I didn't even like say anything about LPN, LVN, but I said something about nurses, and they were like, this is what's the problem with LVN. It was just going on.
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh, now what I do find is when I'm talking about like med spas or entrepreneurship, I say nurses, or I'll say RNs, because I've never been an LPN, I've been a CNA, so I can speak from the CNA perspective. And then I went to RN, right? And then in MP and on, but I started as a CNA. So when I can talk about that because I feel comfortable with it. But I put up a post and I said, I think it was from one of our podcasts, Crystal and I had done, and I had said, we talked about nurses and this whole degree divide, like, and I was just saying, like, you know, it's whatever, but I feel like it's intentional. I feel like it's like a divide and conquer that the healthcare system creates. Like, it's like, oh, you have to, whatever your degree is. And I just feel like it gives people this feeling of like a little bit better if I have a BSN versus if you have a ADN or MSN or whatever. So when I posted that, the first comment was, you're even doing it right here with not including LPNs and LP. I was like, I didn't even say anything. Like, I didn't mention anything. But as I was in the comments, I was realizing, I said, this is a real thing. And I'm not in a position to speak to it because I've worked with LPNs and LVNs, and I have never experienced a problem. But I think there definitely is one. And I felt like you would be a great person to speak about this because you're always like, period, LPN, that's a nurse. What? Can you please speak to what the issue is, and then what can we do because I feel like we need to be on the same page. I feel like we have a common enemy here, and it's not each other.
Right? It's not, and it's so crazy. And it's what I hate about what I do when I speak about in like LVNs. They take it and turn it into this competition that is not where at least I'm coming from. It was like, oh, you know, just speaking about the LPN, LVN, you know, divide is actually perpetuating the divide. I was like, is it? No, I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Right. I was like, if anything, I'm educating, or not just me, then now there's, you know, even more like LPN creators. It's all about education. Majority of people, okay, hands up if you knew what an LPN was before nursing school.
Before nursing school. I actually did, because I thought about going to school for
See what you were a CNA. You were.
I was a CNA.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't.
Okay. So I don't count.
Right. No one has their hand up.
Okay.
So, and that is fine. Like, I didn't even know what an LPN was.
Okay.
So, you know, part of one of my biggest goals on social, or my platform this period, is to educate about the realities of LPN life, and to, you know, debunk any myths or those misconceptions that just are not factual. You know, obviously, like, I'm all down for unity. We're all nurses. We're going to work together. Of course, that's the goal. However, we can't pretend that like an issue doesn't exist just to be like, we should all get along anyway. I would love for that to happen, but we still have to do the work for that to happen, and to be sincere and actually like,
agreed,
right, you know, something that functions, and not just a fake, oh, we're in it together, but we don't even know each other's like real roles. Right. So I think just lack of education is part of the reason why these misconceptions are continuous. Even now, you know, from when my grandma, or, you know, my aunt, when they were actually in the nursing field and actually like working when I was growing up, I remember them saying things about like jokes about LPNs, like the low paid nurse, or the, you know, little play nurse. I remember those like jokes, and it never came from like either LPNs or really a lot of people like in healthcare.
Yeah.
A lot of times it would be non-healthcare people.
Okay.
And there are some healthcare people that do it as
too.
well. But if you work with an LPN, or at least have worked with an LPN or know the role from an RN, and even from a CNA perspective, the amount of people that have that mindset is like minute compared to, non-healthcare workers. And again, that's because of the lack of education.
Yeah.
So when I go and I'm educating, about LPNs and LVNs, because I've had those experiences.
Yeah.
And those experiences that you won't experience if you're not an LPN, LVN.
Yes,
So,
you.
we share them. A lot of people will say that I'm either like embellishing it or I'm being dramatic. And it won't be until like other LPNs will go into my comments and say, oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah.
I've experienced that as well. And because other people either haven't seen it or experienced it, whether it's because they haven't experienced it yet as an LPN or at all, or if they just never had that experience because that person's not an LPN, LVN, they just think it doesn't exist. Like, if I don't see it, if it's not happening to me, then it can't exist.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And so, my goal is to use my voice to not only, to not complain, but to actually, like I said, educate and spread awareness about LPNs and LVNs, and this not new, but this subset of nurses that a lot of people don't know about. And it's not because, of willful ignorance, but when you see like Grey's Anatomy, or if you see media in any form, you don't see LPNs. You don't. Shonda Rhimes is not writing an LPN character. She's just not. So you see RNs everywhere. Yeah. So just by proximity, you're just going to be like, okay, when I think nurses, I'm going to think RN. Yeah. So then when you have someone like me all of a sudden come and be like, hey, LPNs are nurses too, or ask the question when it's someone's doing an event for nurses, you'll see this a lot. Are LPNs allowed to go as well? Is this for LPNs as well? Yes. And that comes from the trauma of either assuming, because of course LPNs are nurses. Yes, we know that, but we have to say that and bring that truth even louder, because even though we say it, it's like it doesn't apply to all situations. Yeah. I remember there was I think it was like my first or second Nurses Week, and I was going to Dunkin' Donuts for like a free donut. I was like, whoop, getting my free donut. I'm ready. I've worked hard for this. I'm so excited to show this nurse badge. Yeah. We said nurses. Baby. Oh, wow. I said, see that word right there? It says nurse. Yeah. So can I have my donut? I was like, well, we don't, LPNs aren't considered nurses. In front of like 13 people in the Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. Mind you, this is my first time publicly dealing with, I guess, LPN discrimination, or just, this type of like hate and humiliation. And I did not know how to handle it. I went to my car and cried. That's the only thing I could do. But in my mind, I was like, oh, if I could go back, this is what I would do. This is what I would say. But what really gets me is that experience happens almost on a daily for LPNs and LVNs. Yeah. It may not be a Dunkin' Donuts or a Starbucks or whatever. Yeah. It literally could just be they're at their job, and maybe the doctor says something rude, or a patient's family member, or the patient themselves, or maybe even like the CNA or respiratory tech or something like that. And it's because of the lack of knowledge. So even when I say LPNs are nurses, licensed practical, then you met with the other thing. Well, CNA has nurse in the title, and CNAs aren't nurses. Apples and oranges. You know what you're doing. You're trying to be cute. It's not working. But those are the experiences that we deal with. And when you take that, it may sound like just a one-time thing. You may think like, oh, okay, just shrug it off. Like, and I'll get this a lot. You know what you are. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. Like, don't even, talk about it. But when those little small scratches or those small things happen daily on top of it, they build up. Yeah. They build up, and it creates a scar, and it creates trauma. Yes. So, now when you see like a giveaway, or you see like a store that's doing a discount on, I don't know, another donut. I don't know.
Right.
You know, you have that fear. You're almost like second guessing yourself because you're just like, well, I know I'm a nurse, but do they know I'm a nurse?
Right.
And am I willing to possibly get humiliated again just because this person may not know, and I, you know, may not know what it is, which is valid, but also very scary.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't even disclose that they're LPNs.
Yeah.
You'll get nurse. You'll get, you'll just get nurse.
Yes.
Honestly. And I know a lot of people that won't even tell friends, family, anybody that they're an LPN because it's like, okay, I'm going to go to LPN school, but then I'm going to immediately bridge over to RN and not tell anybody until I'm an RN. And then they'll say, because I don't want to deal with the backlash.
Yeah.
So it's like, for that to be a thought and for the thought to also be that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Both of those things can't be true.
Yeah.
Like something does not add up. But since then, 5 years ago, I was one of the only, if not the only creator that was very, not just like public and proud, but very just loud with my credentials, and that I'm a licensed practical nurse. Yes, I'm a nurse, but I want you to know what specific type of nurse I am. Because nobody else was like really proud because of, you know, what was going on. So I was like one of the first ones to really just kind of bring that pride into the license. And, you know, since then, I'm like floored to see like all these different creators and a lot of people talking about like LPNs and stuff like now. And I'm not just the only one getting cussed out. But even when I have to educate about my products because they're for LPN and RN, a lot of times they'll count me out. A lot of people will count me out just because I am an LPN and they think that the study guides that I create aren't for RNs or can't, you know, help out RNs. And that's been one of the main challenges, because if given the chance, you know, I'm confident that my products, if you're a visual learner, will interest you. But if you don't give me the chance, just based off the fact that I'm an LPN and you think that what RNs have to learn about pharmacology is different from what LPNs have to learn about pharmacology, then not only are you selling yourself short, you know, at the same time, but that's perpetuating the divide, especially when in school, how LPNs and like the RN and LPN comparison in school is different than when you're actually licensed. You know, completely different scope of practice. Completely different scope of practice. We all know that. We all know that RNs and LPNs are not the same. It's never been the argument. But when you say, oh my gosh, LPNs are nurses too,
that's a different.
Then the response is usually, well, they're not RNs though. And it's,
so what's the how I felt like my grandma would say, you don't have a dog in the fight, right? So from my perspective, I like to speak when I know I can win the argument, but this was one of those that I'm like, well, like I don't know a lot about it, so I don't know if I could. So I know nurses are nurses. To me, nurses are nurses. I feel that same way even when they're RNs, whether they're MSN, RN, whatever. I've realized, because I guess maybe because I've been a nurse for so long, like when it comes to your practice, unless you're advanced, you're RN and you clinical, that's relate to your RN license, period. And so I can argue that, I can speak to that. But when I get to the LPN, LVN, and I'm like, well, it's not that I don't talk about it because I don't believe you're a nurse. I don't talk about it because I don't know enough about it. That's why I don't feel like I'm in a position to speak about it, because I'm like, I know y'all nurses, but I what is it, the difference? Like I've even had people saying like, they're the same. I'm like, okay, no, they're not. But what the difference is I can't argue that, because I know in some states they can do this, in other states they can do that. And so when, you know, that is my biggest challenge. And I think we need to come up with a way. First of all, I know it's projected trauma too. I know that it's like some of the people, the ones who are most vocal, are just traumatized by their experiences. And my hope is to come to my platform and on the app for me and have a safe space. So when I'm referring to nurses, I'm referring to nurses. If I specifically for FNPs, I'll say FNPs or whatever. But I feel like it's a trauma thing. So what's the solution, would you say? And I know we're taking up your time, so I want to be quick about it, but I want you to, from your perspective, like what could be a solution? I mean, these type of conversations I know are helpful and we should do it more often. But what would you say is a beginning of a solution, or at least a step in the right direction?
I would definitely say like these conversations are definitely needed, and they're very helpful, just because again, the information if it's just, I'm just going to be honest, just based off of what people have told me and just what my experience have been. Me alone on my platform, you know, educating and just saying like, oh, LPNs are this, blah, blah, blah. Again, I am cut out just because, oh, LPN. I'm not listening to her. She knows what she's talking about. But when you have an RN and an LPN or RN and an LVN, it holds a different weight.
Yes.
And so I'm so thankful for, you know, platforms like this that allow me to come and aren't afraid of having those conversations. I'm just so grateful and just so thankful just because it unfortunately doesn't hold weight to a lot of people without, you know, rooms and spaces like this. So again, I want to thank you guys again for having me on here to have this conversation. I really, really appreciate it and I love it. And I just love how open you guys are about this conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
just keep the conversation
I think
going.
keep the conversation going. And yeah, honestly, because the problem and I guess where the smoke comes from, it doesn't even make sense because we do the same thing. Like you said, like we're bedside clinical. We are bedside clinical. Yeah. You know, that call light does not say RN or LPN. Yes. It does not. Right. So I find that if they have that superiority complex, unfortunately, that's not going to go away with any type of conversation. Unfortunately, that's going to be like an experience thing. But what I find to be the most impactful as far as like individual change is just besides the talking and having the conversations, the experience and like that action. So when they have an LPN that works with them in the ER or in settings that they just swore up and down LPNs were not allowed to even look at, let alone work at, you know, that kind of opens up their mind and their perspective. And, you know, usually that shifts them. Yeah. You know, but just like what you said, a lot of it's projected trauma. It is. And whether it's like a bad story or just a bad experience. Yeah. A good story, a good experience. Yes. I feel would trump that, especially with something like this. I think that's our best shot because just making content about like LPNs are nurses, that's not going to work. It needs to be. Yeah. It needs to be. Yeah. And it needs to be some type of call to action at the same time. So I think definitely that was the conversation.
Well, you definitely opened my eyes because, and I know LPNs, LVNs go through that, but I would probably think like, oh, they probably have one person say something rude, like, okay. But to hear, you probably hear all over, all the time and from different experiences and different people. So I can see how that would be traumatizing. So I will definitely do my job to make sure that LPNs, LVNs always feel included. And the nurse conversation. For sure. So for sure. Conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. This needed to be a whole hour just talking about this. Man. We could go on. I had so many more questions.
On and on. We'll have part two. We can do a part two.
Yes. We definitely do. And make it exclusive about
Do not give me an excuse to go to LA. Here's your excuse. Come to LA. Okay? Do not give me an excuse. But yeah. I would love to have this conversation.
Yeah, let's continue it. Definitely. Because one thing I know is we all have a place in healthcare. Our patients need every single one of us. And we need to make sure that we don't allow I keep talking about artificial. They're gonna think I'm a investor. Yes, they're gonna think that I'm trying to sabotage some stuff. But the truth is AI is here, y'all. And we all need to be worried, okay? But anyway, a conspiracy theorist, I'm not, but I do my research.
Hello.
That's what we need to be worried about. But we need to unite so that we can come together and really argue for the things and fight for the things that really, truly matter. Right. So let us know where all they can find you, all of your platforms and all the things, website, everything.
Well, majority of my platforms like Instagram, Facebook, you can find me at The Nurse Sam. You can find my website, thenursesam.com. On TikTok, I am at thenursesam1. Don't ask. And if you would like to join the conversation, join a community of LPN and RN students, okay, who are visual learners, who like to learn and have fun, please check out campnursingschool.com. That is our free membership, again, for LPN and RN students.
Period.
Come learn and have fun. And campnursingschool.com. I'll see you there.
Honestly, I probably could have took that when I just real side note, I just took the FNP cert and I almost died. Okay. And don't talk about the to touch. Oh my God. I know you got that in there. Girl, I was struggling.
You know it.
Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you guys, we are on all platforms. So if you guys are listening on podcast, make sure you share. Everything for Nurse Sam is in the show notes. We are also on YouTube. We don't talk about YouTube enough. Y'all can see our beautiful faces, all of us on YouTube, you guys. We are live in set in Atlanta, and this is a beautiful location. So get on YouTube and also watch us there and give us some comments. Share. Don't be stingy. Don't gatekeep. We don't like that because we don't gatekeep here. But until next time, you guys, bye.